And we are live.
We
Welcome, David
are
Porter.
live. Yes.
We're
Thank
live
you.
on your TV sets in Texas and Louisiana on the Smart Money Culture TV network. We are doing a lot of things. I was actually watching our main man Fly Mackey last night as he was interviewing some people. I think he's getting. You can tell the experience. You could probably watch us as well and be like, all right, the experience pays off. You do a few hours of television a day. You do a couple hours of television a day. Hey man, counter news. Greetings. I'll tell you what, we do need the counter news right now. It is really something else what's going on. But yeah, you do a couple of shows a day. You do a couple hours of TV a day, and yeah, you start to you get a little bit more refined. And that's what I noticed about our man Fly Mackey watching his show a bit last night.
Nice.
He's
Yes, it's that thing you can't buy. You can't buy experience, right?
You can't buy experience. That's what they say. You cannot buy experience. And apparently, yeah, well, there's some things you can buy. And one of them is the Supreme Court.
Apparently. I think America's been grabbed quite a few times over the generations.
Well, I agree. That's one of the things I said after January 6th, when I saw how easily everything happened. I said, well, shoot, I think this has been done a few times before. And I was right. Of course, it happened in 1913 with the Federal Reserve Act. It also happened back in 1865, 1864, when they made fiat money and they had all that stuff. It started the corporation, and you could say good or bad about any of that. I don't think paper money is good. The gold standard didn't start till 1900. And then we were on fiat, actual fiat currency, paper currency, between 1964 and 1900. People don't know that. But yeah, a lot going on. So, I mean, this is coming out of the Supreme Court, unbelievable. We're going to talk a little bit more about that. The markets are absolutely flying. Inflation is through the roof. And there is no better indication of that than oil over $80 a barrel. This $80 a barrel price is a psychological price. And the fact that we are above that right now is not good. It's not a good indicator of what we have going on. That's absolutely correct. So let's look at that real quick. Let me just let me get my I'll take it from Dow futures. Everything's fine. Look, when your money is the value of your money is going down, of course, assets and whatnot fly. That's the way it works. Okay. Share my screen. So I'm going to pull it right up here on my Dow futures tab that I have open, because I was just looking at that too. Dow futures is up, of course. Of course, Dow futures is up because the dollar is going down. Now I'm just going to use this tab though and go over to one of my favorite places here. All right. I'll go over some of that in a minute. Oil right here. Little bit of a pullback off of its high this morning as I've been watching this. So we were up a little bit more, almost at $81. You can see us here at $80.37. So I'm going to be watching that closely. We're going to be watching that closely. What the price of oil does, and you can just see here, real spike. This is fairly normal market stuff here. It went down and then boom. But you see, this is all over 80. So once it broke 80, we were at 79. I can make this a little bigger for everybody. We were here at 79, 78, right in here. We've been flirting with this 80, and then pop, broke the barrier, okay? Came back down, retested, only made it down to, 79 and a half or so, and then pop. And then you see it's just been holding over here. And that was about 2 hours ago. So we'll see, but I'll tell you what, guys, with inflation doing what it's doing, we could have runaway oil prices. Now, what that means for you and me is if we start to have runaway oil prices and this goes up, shoots back up where it's been before, over $100 a barrel, it could even go much higher. Everything. You think inflation is bad now? Everything goes up. Everything goes up. There's no choice but for things to go up. It costs truckers more to bring it in. It costs the farmers more to make it. It costs more to fly it over. It costs more to ship it over. It costs more at every single turn.
Yep. And then you see more high rises going on in the Middle East.
True. Now, the truth is the U.S. produces a lot of oil now. So it'll be, but yeah, it does still feel like that money, I would agree. It does still feel like that money is concentrated over there. I'm not sure why it feels that way, but it certainly does. So we'll talk some more about that just as I have that tab. Let me add it back to the stage. And then just kind of cover the couple of things here. As you saw, the Dow futures were up over 100 points. The Hong Kong Stock Exchange, which has been having really a banner run since they started printing money over there a couple weeks ago, down a little bit today, but up there around 17,000. It's doing fairly well. Let's see here. Natural gas, copper, gold is down slightly. Gold futures. Or no, gold was up. No, gold's down slightly, down a little bit, but it's up. I mean, 2,173. It's up. It's up on the 5-day, up just a little bit on percentage wise. Gold doesn't move that much. Gold is a head, I guess, as I say now. $25 on the silver. That is considerable. That's a considerable move. That's up 12% on the month. Didn't do on the month for gold. Of course, you can go to at cost metals. Yeah, so gold is up 8.5% on the month. You can go to atcostmetals.club. If that link doesn't direct you directly to our page, sometimes it can be tricky. You can get atcostmetals.com, and you can sign up for to buy gold and silver at cost. Pretty. It's a interesting setup that they have there. You'd be part of the club, and then you buy gold and silver at cost. So we're going to dive in a bit more into the markets and everything a bit later. One of the things I wanted to talk about is this, as I called it. I didn't get the title that I wanted in. There was just too much to talk about. Just in Supreme Court rules, Biden administration can contact big tech amid censorship allegations. So we have this 1-2 punch. It's like a 1-2 punch going on right now against your First Amendment rights. Now, remember that free speech only exists in America. There is no other country that even really acts like there is free speech. I mean, I guess you could say the UK acts like it. I don't know, but certainly it's not the case.
It's far from the case.
It's far from the case, as David just put. There's no other country that even acts like it. Really, we don't have free speech here either. It took a billionaire buying X, Twitter, and he's basically on borrowed time. We are all on borrowed time because of rulings like this. And so what we have here is between this and then as well, let me just pull it up on my my X here. The other thing that happened yesterday was this TikTok ban. So this TikTok ban, they just kicked it right through Congress, right through. Like nobody was watching or nobody was paying attention. I mean, it's not true that nobody was. You had Elon Musk talking about it, saying, hey, this is bad. We don't want this going on. But this TikTok ban, actually, I don't even need to pull it up. I can just tell you. So this TikTok ban is bad. Is bad, guys. So the deal is with the TikTok ban is, remember when Trump was going on about banning TikTok and we should ban TikTok and everything else. Well, what they did was they moved the servers into the U.S. and they did like a couple other things, and then of course Trump backed off it. Now, I didn't support banning TikTok back then either. Okay. But he obviously had some intel on it, and that was it. And he went after him. Now, nothing happened. Now, then what you saw over the last few months was TikTok. They didn't suppress history, and stuff got out. A lot of stuff that you're not supposed to see, apparently. They don't want you to see this stuff. And TikTok just let it happen. And even on X, you can see it. You will still get banned on X if you talk about this stuff, but a lot of people can get away with it. But they have freedom of speech, but not freedom of reach. And so they really throttle you. So if you talk about it, you're going to probably be demonetized. Even like Dom Lucer comes to mind, however you pronounce his last name. You will get, they didn't even tell him. They just pulled him off. We are going on a commercial break on Smart Money Culture TV. We'll be right back on the other side of the commercial with the great Matt Dixon talking more about the markets.
It's also, with the TikTok, it's also quite a power grab as they force them to sell it to whoever they choose.
Yes. And free speech, power grab and free speech, I don't know, final punch, I'll say. I'm not sure. With Supreme Court and Congress. Who, even though we know, who do these people work for? Question mark. So Congress, it's 09 in broadcast. One of these days, we're going to talk our other brother into tweeting from my page. One day, we're going to get James to start doing stuff and help us out. So the Supreme Court rules that, of course, this is all, what is this? Yes, it affects all social media. Okay, all social media. So that's the TikTok ban. So the Supreme Court rules that the administration, the president or the government can contact, this is yesterday, that they can contact, and they're going to issue the final ruling here in a week or two, but it's decided that they can contact the social media companies. And we saw what happened. The FBI totally infiltrated Twitter, and they were working. They were a propaganda piece of the government, and that's it was amazing even that I lasted as long as I did on that platform. And then you have Congress that passes the TikTok ban, and obviously there's going to be no push from the Supreme Court to stop it. They just ruled this, and then Senate is going to rubber stamp it because that is controlled by the Democrats, who are even more openly opposed to history that they don't like getting out, talk that they don't like getting out. 1-2 punch, boom, boom. Congress completely out of control. Mike Johnson, who do they work for? I just put out on my X account, but we all know who they work for. They work for the central bank. Central bank is completely in control. And the central bank doesn't like people talking bad about them.
Yeah.
Them.
They like to do something about it as well.
So, pretty interesting, guys. Yeah, that's not good. It's not good. I don't even know. I have to like really kind of get my head around everything. I mean, it is a big 1-2 punch. There's a video. We'll probably play it in the afternoon. There's a video. Who's the guy? Shoot, I forgot his name. Anyway, I'll cover that in a minute. But the reins of power are really tightening. They're really tightening. And this 1-2 punch by SCOTUS and by the Supreme Court and Congress should worry everybody. Because here's the wording in this TikTok ban is any company that the president deems a threat or the president deems a threat. Okay. So yeah, and they can break them apart, make them sell it. Like that's it. So this is really, it's a TikTok ban today, but what this really is coming after X. And then people are I saw even people, oh yeah, it's great. No, it's not great. This is horrible. So it'll take, they'll probably let the election go and then they'll come after, they're going to come after X 100%. We have to decentralize media. It's one of the things that we're working on.
Move towards.
We need to do for media what Bitcoin did for money. Bitcoin did for currency, and we're working.
Yes, your freedom of speech and avoid this complete dictatorship.
Yes. All right, let's talk about the markets. The markets are flying. We're back on Smart Money Culture TV on Texas and Louisiana. We have the great Matt Dixon with us. How are you, sir?
I'm good, thank you. Good to be with you once again. Yeah, amazing. So it's amazing how free speech is under fire.
Unbelievable, really. Like it is really something else. I've been telling everybody that the Supreme Court's not going to save us. And if you didn't think that I was right then, you should seriously understand the situation we're in now.
So it's going to come to a head at some point because the populace, are pushing more and more for decentralization and democracy, and yet the centralized powers are pushing for their continuation of control. So it will come to a head, I believe. So we'll see. Let's see what's happening in the markets.
Yeah, so markets, markets are flying, huh? There's just really, well, you saw what I had up there about the oil and everything, and I think we know.
Well, we'll touch on oil briefly. So I'll just share my screen.
Yep.
Which I trust you can see. I mean, this is actually 6 days away. This is the next Federal Reserve Open Market Committee meeting.
Okay.
To decide the next level of interest rates. And I think it's well over 90% chance that the rates are going to stay on hold yet again. That's despite the fact that inflation rose way more than expected. Inflation is getting towards twice the target level that the Fed wants, but they can't afford to lower rates at the moment because, well, obviously inflation is a problem. So if anything, I mean, people have actually come out. There's a CNBC interview actually where someone came out and said the next move in interest rates will be higher, believe it or not. So This will be a shock if it actually happens. As I say, it's 90% plus chance that rates will stay on hold this time round. They were supposed to have 3 rate rises were factored in. The Fed said during 2024, there'll be 3 rate rises. As they get pushed back more and more with no rate rise, it's less and less likely that that's going to be the case. So again, we've said many times before, the Fed aren't very good at predicting the future. And that's just proving to be the case even now. Now here is looking at the markets, coming over to markets. This is the old fear and greed index. This was actually the 8th of March. So just only a matter of days ago, and it was an 81. Today, it's actually risen to 88. We are really getting into extreme territory for extreme greed in this market. And so I do believe that at some point, well, there's certainly danger of a pullback, let's just put it that way. But there's a lot of positive pressures right now in the market, but there are things bubbling away and brewing in the background that could cause a problem. I won't go into this much because we've always, we go over this, but it's a very, very important chart and basically just showing that when unemployment hits a low level, then that's just before a recession. So it's cyclical, basically. Every time unemployment hits a cyclical low or a cycle low, we actually then get recession and you get unemployment spiking higher. And it's happened every single time historically since the 1940s. It's happened every single time. Right now, we're seeing, again, a cycle low in unemployment. And so, it just stands to reason that recession is coming. So that's why they are probably holding back these rate reductions for the future. When recession comes, they'll have to lower rates. But if inflation is still sticky, they can't. And so they'll take the middle ground and have some new way of printing money, bond buying, whatever you want to call it, bringing money into the market to keep business afloat. But I wanted to look today because we're just around the corner from Bitcoin halving. And these are the halving dates that we've had so far. So the first halving was in November 2012. And then basically the mining reward was, you can see the mining rewards here, that basically it was cut from 50 Bitcoin for mining a block down to 25 Bitcoin. That was that halving. The last one was July 26. Well, so the last one. The one after that was July 2016, when the reward for the miners dropped from 25 Bitcoin to 12.5 Bitcoin. The next halving happened during the COVID crisis, or roundabout COVID crisis, 2020, and we saw Bitcoin mining reward drop from 12.5 to 6.25. And then the next halving. The mining reward is in April 2024. Next month, we're going to see the next halving, where the reward drops from 6.25 to 3 1/8, so 3.125 Bitcoin. So what that actually means is this is actually the new supply of Bitcoin. So new Bitcoin is being mined, and as it's mined, these Bitcoin rewards are basically more Bitcoin coming into the market, and the miners will usually sell those Bitcoin at some point in time. So it is basically more supply. It's the rate of new supply of Bitcoin, and it's diminishing constantly. And when it halves again this April, next month, the supply of Bitcoin in relation to the actual amount of Bitcoin available, so the supply-demand ratio will drop below that of gold. So that's when it's really beginning to take on that mantle of digital gold. And it's why people are holding Bitcoin, because of the scarcity. It's hardly inflationary. And in fact, with the number of Bitcoin that are lost, it's actually probably deflationary, as against we're seeing inflation running very high in the traditional markets. As we said, inflation is currently 3.7%, is it? 3.7, 3.8%. So it's way above target. So that's why Bitcoin is a very attractive investment for people, because it is, Bruce has been through that, and David, so many times about the reasons why people hold Bitcoin. And it's really a lot to do with its scarcity and its security, and the fact that it can't be tampered with and can't be taken off you by government, etc. So the next Bitcoin halving date is likely to be April the 20th. We don't know exactly, because it just depends. It's actually every 210,000 blocks we have a halving event. These blocks are about every 10 minutes, but it depends on number of transactions. So we can't say precisely, but this is someone trying to give their estimation 37 days away until April the 20th. And this was their estimation. It won't be precise, or highly unlikely to be precise, but it's really interesting. And we'll have a look shortly about what this means potentially for the Bitcoin price. Now, I don't say this is absolutely definitely going to repeat itself. We can never say that things will repeat, but we look for patterns in the market. And this was the first halving event that we talked about. We can see back there in 2012, the first halving event. And we can see what happened to the Bitcoin price. Immediately after halving, the Bitcoin price rallied sharply. And if you look at the percentages, it moved from a level of around $12. Can you imagine Bitcoin, $12? And then the peak was there, but even at next halving, it was around the $600 mark, somewhere around there at the time of the next halving. So from $12 to $600, massive appreciation there. But then from $600, that was 2016, we saw that halving. So the next movement up we saw from the $600-ish mark, and the next halving was somewhere around the $7,000 mark. So I think it's about 93x or something like that. You saw appreciation there, and then that was the halving in 2020, and now we're just looking forward to the next halving. So far, the appreciation is a little bit less in percentage terms. So from around that 7,000 mark, so we're looking 10x or a little over 10x so far. We're still a month to go. Who knows? Bitcoin could go crazy in the last little bit of time before the next halving. But bearing in mind what happened actually in the previous halving event is actually following the halving event, and that's when the supply diminishes. It's following the halving event that we usually see the massive appreciation. So the fact that we've seen some appreciation, as we've seen in every other time, it's actually immediately after the halving that we tend to see a massive appreciation. And that's where all of these admittedly speculative calls, but predictive calls for Bitcoin to, I've heard many up to $1 million plus, many people talking $700,000. And again, if you looked at the actual appreciation that we've seen after previous halving events, any of these figures are possible. And I think Bitcoin right now is pretty much unstoppable, because now the floodgates have been opened with ETF approval and the institutions are piling in. I do think it's pretty much unstoppable unless we see some sort of geopolitical event that we've discussed over and over that is brewing in the Middle East. And I've said for a long time, I actually think that something could spill over possibly during April. Could be wrong. Again, that's speculation, but just looking at it's a typical time of year for those things to boil over. So it could just scupper what's going to happen with halving. As I say, these things aren't absolutely predictive, but we just try to follow patterns. So Bruce mentioned earlier, Bruce and David were discussing about the oil price. And yes, we have seen a little spike higher in oil price. I'm not quite sure what's driven that, whether it's geopolitical issues or whether it is basically economies still looking reasonably healthy and demand still being high. Yes, as Bruce and David were saying, a lot of supply still comes out of the Middle East. So yes, America do produce a lot of oil, but they tend to use that internally. They don't tend to export their oil, whereas Saudi Arabia and around the Middle East are big exporters, the massive exporters of oil. And that's why it's so important to look at the supply and demand characteristics around the Middle East. America, as I say, is pretty much self-sufficient now with oil, pretty much. I know it fluctuates in and out of that. Looking at some of the amazing performance there have been, Solana has been absolutely amazing. It's one we've featured a lot, and we've said that the upside is tremendous. This was the previous all-time high for Solana around, it actually should be a touch higher in here, it's around $260, and we're currently around just over the $170 mark. Now, from a trader's perspective, we would say that at the moment, that would likely be overhead resistance, but you can see it's a long, long way away. We're still about $90 away, so there's still potential for a lot of upside. Potential, as I say, nothing's ever guaranteed, it's all probabilities. But the probability at the moment, with the way markets are flying, is that Solana at some point will likely retest that previous all-time high, and it could blast through it. The uptake of Solana is absolutely tremendous at the moment. It's a real favorite for some of these new meme coins. There's a lot of attractive aspects and metrics for Solana as to why it's going to become probably one of the choices of retail for the future. So I do think that Solana's still got quite a long way potentially to go, and you'd be foolish to bet against it, I think. Litecoin, similar. We called Litecoin quite well out of this triangle that we had labeled previously, and I said once the triangle's complete at wave E, you then get the thrust from the triangle. I do believe that we might get, probably if Solana continues to push higher, it's hard to say again. We've had such a push up from here, such a strong thrust, and we've had basically an A, B, and C could be finished at any point around here. So I think it's dangerous to jump in long right now to a lot of these tokens. If you're already long, then protect your positions. Just be wary that we are in brand new territory. This is history-making territory for Bitcoin, for example, which is at new all-time highs. And as we said, anybody who's bought Bitcoin at any time in its history who's still holding it is in profit. So every single Bitcoin holder is actually in profit at the moment. So we're at new all-time highs. It's new price territory. It can still go potentially much, much higher, but just be cautious that there is some potential downside to be found. And then we look at the SPX, the S&P 500. I've changed my chart very slightly here, looking as though potentially we still have higher to go. So I do think this is some kind of corrective move still to the upside. And I think even though this is unusual, but it's the way that the S&P seems to be moving at the moment, I do think that we're seeing some kind of ABWX, ABYX, ABZ. And Z should be the final move. I did think that Z was probably here, but we're already pushing slightly above that. So I've actually moved my labeling slightly, thinking that's probably just the A wave complete. That's the B wave complete, and we're pushing up in a C wave. So I do think, and again, looking at those long-term charts that we looked at from Sid Norris, who looks at a long-term view of the market right from when the Dow and the S&P and everything began, right from from over 100 years ago. He's saying that we're at or somewhere near an all-time high in the market that will turn around and we'll get substantial correction. So I think that's a real possibility here, as we see most likely probably see further appreciation with the S&P 500. So that's what the chart appears to be telling us. So again, if you're already in your position, hold it and protect it. Probably a little bit late in the day to be jumping into new positions, but if you do, as long as you protect with a stop loss, there's no particular reason why you shouldn't, I guess. We still have room to go on RSI. RSI isn't in overbought territory at the moment, so potentially here, this is just on the 4-hour chart, there's potential for quite a bit higher to go before we get into overbought territory in RSI, where that would signal potentially a short-term turnaround. So for example, here, we had overbought RSI at this peak here and price retreated. Here, overbought RSI at a peak, price retreated. Here, around these sort of levels, both here and here, overbought RSI and price retreated. So it's actually quite a good signal to give you an indication of when price might be peaking and ready to retreat. So we're not overbought. We need to get over this 70 line to get into overbought territory. And then it can actually go quite a bit overbought before it retreats. So there's some reasonably good room there, room for maneuver to the upside still. And then just briefly, gold. We can see gold is having a little bit of a rest at the moment. We had a bit of a pullback, I think, with inflation figures the other day that came out higher than expected. But it still looks like it's just a bit of a correction. It does look as though there's more highs to come. So I suspect we're still going to see sticky inflation to come. But the big event is going to be the FOMC next week, 6 days away now. We'll see the FOMC interest rate decision. So that's going to have a big impact. But at the moment, with inflation being sticky and higher than it should be, I think gold definitely still has higher to go as the traditional hedge against inflation. And I think penultimate slide, we'll look at the DXY dollar index. Again, we fell below that long-held parallel trend channel, and you can see the price fell there. That's coincided pretty well with the pump that we've seen in Bitcoin and crypto. And it looks as though we probably still have lower to go with DXY here, because this looks like a corrective overlapping move here. So, and this is kind of impulsive to the downside. So it does look as though we have lower to go, which is probably positive for crypto, for Bitcoin, for risk assets, S&P, all those kind of things. So that's looking positive. And again, it's just quite, I'm only touching on this just because we did say yesterday that we had this bullish divergence looking positive for the eBay token. And I was only showing it really just to demonstrate how effective these divergence signals are. And we had that bullish divergence signal, price pushed up really strongly. We're seeing it now over 30% from that particular signal. But what is important is, if this is indeed correct with being an A, B, C down for wave 2, then wave 3 should take us well above wave 1. And in fact, potentially a minimum 1.618. So way up into the stratosphere. So knowing what's coming through in the near future with eBay, I think there's potential there. Obviously, be very cautious. Don't put money in you can't afford to risk. And this will be a long-term investment because it is At the moment, there's not a lot of liquidity there, but it's one of those that's really cheap. It's only around 1 cent at the moment, could potentially rocket in the future. So quite an interesting one. Nice. And then obviously you can learn how to trade all of these things on our Learn How to Trade course. And through Bruce and David and Impact Money, you can use the TradeSmart 10 to basically get a 10% discount on the course. Well worth doing if you want to learn how to trade consistently, not just crypto, but any assets. It's really helpful. And that's on learnhowtotrade.club. So that's a wrap for today. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, David. And yeah, very exciting day in the markets.
It sure is. Great, really great segment here, covering all the bases, right on through the gamut. Right, Impact Money. You want to know what's going on with the money, and there you go. I'll tell you what. If Bitcoin 10x from here, and we're sitting at $730,000 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what. We're gonna. What worries me is that the difference. I feel like that kind of stuff. That's where you would just wipe out the middle class, because everyone's going to have so much money. I mean, the people in the know are going to have so much money.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many people hold a whole Bitcoin, and yes, it is potentially life-changing to hold Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin is obviously the safe bet these days. When I say the safe bet, nothing's absolutely safe. But in terms of crypto investments, it's the solid one. It's now got institutional backing. But the real opportunities are in the other up-and-coming tokens. But that's where the research really comes into it. You need to do your due diligence, because some tokens generally don't have a future. I mean, I think there's over 20,000 crypto tokens out there. You need to be really doing your due diligence, because most of those will amount to nothing at all. And so any money you put in, most of them will actually be dead money. So you need to do your due diligence and try to pick wisely and try to look at various things. Obviously, look at the team that's behind it. Try and look at the tokenomics. Try and look at the, you can look at on-chain metrics, how many holders there are, what whales there are. What the actual business model is. Is there a future for the business model? Is it going to be attractive? Is it going to be useful? So you need to look at all these things, but that's where the opportunities lie. If you can identify them, the good ones, and even with the meme coins, actually look at who's behind it. Do they have the clout to be able to push that? Because they're going to be pushed by social media, and you need to get in. If you're looking at a meme coin, even there's no real fundamentals behind those meme coins, but if they have the right backing, and they can build some real liquidity and some real momentum, then there's opportunity to make money. It's a different kind of environment than traditional finance here. There is a lot of speculation, and that's why crypto is so volatile. If the bubble were to burst at any time, it would be very, very serious. It would burst and it would cause a lot of pain for people. And that's why it isn't for all of your portfolio, all of your investment, but definitely is for some of it, because the opportunities are so tremendous.
Well, you might have saw, over the last, I think 12 hours or so, Elon Musk comes out and says, we're going to accept Doggy Coin. I know it's pronounced Doge, but I always pronounce it Doggy. So we're going to accept the Doggy Coin for Tesla. And if you remember, the last time he said he was going to accept Bitcoin, that really made Bitcoin fly. And you saw an immediate response. And Doggy Coin is like the original meme coin. That's the one that started it all right there. That was funny money. That was like, I've given away so much Doggy Coin in my life, it would make most people cry.
Yeah, it's already up 10% today alone.
Yeah.
So that's a tremendous gain today. So it's leading most of the market. I'm just trying to look if anything's beating it. I was looking at eBay to see if we're beating it. We're only up 1.25%, but it's still.
Solana too. What's Solana at? They were at 10%. I know earlier when I was looking, or last night as well.
Yeah, I suppose it depends where you're counting from. So in America, if you're looking at a different start time, finish time, on my time to go, we're up 5.7%.
So true, right?
We're still at 5%. These figures only 5%, but just imagine that's in a day, and it's just been rising consistently. Day in, day out, there's been massive rises. Yeah, but admittedly, the last few days have been, parabolic. If you look at that chart on a daily chart, absolutely parabolic. It's going vertical. So yeah, and that's Solana, one of the really good ones that we talked about so many times. Do you remember right at the start of the show, I said, if you're looking at crypto, Solana goes up more than the other cryptos and it goes down less than the other cryptos. And so for me, right from the beginning of our shows, I was touting Solana to be the one of choice. If you're looking for real gains, Solana was the one, as I say, historically, and I compared it over the whole history of crypto and the history of Solana, of course, that Solana always rises more and falls less. So to date, it's been amazing. It doesn't say it'll always be that in the future, but that is the case. Litecoin, I mean, I had an amazing day a couple of days ago, 20% in one day, but Litecoin doesn't tend to rise by quite as much as Solana. So again, it's good doing comparative analysis between different cryptos to choose which ones you're going to use for your portfolio. And again, we do a lot of work on that, actually constructing portfolios, because it's a bit of a gamble. If you put all your eggs in one basket, it's actually good to choose the optimal portfolio, which is the correct mix of assets. And it's not just one asset, it's a few assets to minimize your risk and yet still try to maximize your returns.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Good. Yeah. So let's keep our eye on oil, because that's just spiked above. And actually, let's see if the candle closes, because that's what I said the other day. If the candle consistently closes above this line that we showed on the chart before, and we are above that line right now. If it closes, then potentially the outlook for oil is quite bullish. So, as I say, have you any idea? Was there any particular geopolitical issues, or is it just that the economies are looking a bit healthy?
Well, obviously the war drums over here, especially I'm in Washington, so the war drums over here are just, it's like nonstop. I mean, it's like the tide. You can try to stop the tide, but it's the tide, the ocean tide. I mean, it's I was like, I even made a bunch of people mad at me trying to stop us going in and funding this Middle East war and stuff and everything. But that's, I think that everybody knows that they're gonna mint the money. It doesn't matter. Biden came out on his yesterday or the day before and said, well, I'm going to send 300 million more to the Ukraine because I have the authority to do that. He's like kind of mumbling through. I mean, like literally mumbling through. I have the authority to do that because of blah, 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 whatever he said. Basically, the Pentagon told him that he can do it, is what he said. And so, I mean, I think it's very clear to everybody that we're going to continue funding these wars, and that there's no slowing down. And so the dollar has to go up, and the inflation has to go. And these guys, a lot of people are going to make a lot of money, and a lot of people are going to die. It's just such a horrible business. It is a horrible business. But I think that has a lot to do with it. I think that is really has a lot to do with it. And then even if I don't know. I mean, who even knows what's going to happen with the election or whatever? But I don't know if it's going to be much different, because they're making sure that everything is in such a spot where it's like you're already in the wars. You're already all right. So then fine, you got to get out of the wars. You know what I mean? And then of course you have Haiti, kind of in a mess, and Hillary Clinton went over there in Haiti, and that was just always anything that woman touched is a mess. So it took a few years. It took a decade or so, but now we have the collapse of Haiti. And all those people are going to come here. They're saying, everybody's up in arms saying, oh no, they're not going to come. They emptied out the jails. And I'm not going to say all, obviously not all of them, but a lot of them are going to come here. And that is, again, more money for everybody. So for the average person, you're getting taxed through inflation to handle it, but for the machine itself, they're all making more money. Everyone that comes in, there's more meals to give them. There's more housing that they need to put up. There's more. It's more and more and more. So as far as the machine looks, the outlook for that part is good.
I mean, I think they're in a pretty much no-win situation right now with the spending. They're spending in any way they can right now, and that's why they're printing all the money. They're spending any way they can because it's their only way to keep the economy afloat. So the Biden administration, they've spent already 285 billion on transportation projects across the country. So they're spending intra-country, they're spending outside the country. They've got to spend like crazy and just print dollars like crazy and spend to keep the economy going, to keep unemployment down. And we looked at that chart to show that unemployment is at that point now, the low point, where when it turns round, it's going to be absolutely horrendous. This is going to be a very, very serious recession. And they're doing everything they can to stave it off. Yes, it's election year, so they need to print money. They need to spend money like it's going out of fashion. They really do. And they're going to do it. They're going to spend more and more and more money. It's the only way to try and keep things afloat, because it's all about this presidential cycle. And they're going to try to have things look good, have jobs look good. If you see unemployment ticking up before the election, I mean, it looks like Biden's finished anyway. But if you see unemployment ticking up, it's definitely the final nail in the coffin. And so this is the last ammunition he has to try to keep afloat, is to just spend like crazy. And that's what's happening. And you've said yourself on previous shows about the amount of money that's been spent. It's not just arms. They're spending, as I say, on road building, construction. They're spending on everything. Just spend. Tomorrow doesn't matter.
Yeah, so 300 million. Yeah, all right. Yeah, we're sending that. I have the authority to do it, sending over. And every time they say 300 million, you just got to fit. I used to say it's double, but it's more like quadruple. Whatever that number they give you, you can figure it's quadruple. And then we're also we're sending another 130 million to Haiti. And so, we're at a point where I hope people are starting to figure it out. They're not just sending that money out of thin air, that the money is coming from you. And then you just start to get into, how do we get ourselves out of it? We have, of course, Elon Musk. He's bought X, which has been absolutely fantastic. But how he went on basically not a tirade, but I mean he really said, "Look, guys, this TikTok ban is bad. This is going to affect us. It's going to affect the platform. It's going to, and that's what the TikTok ban is all about. The TikTok ban is not about although, all right, fine. They TikTok did some things and got themselves in the situation, but most people aren't on TikTok. Everybody's on X. You know what I mean? The kids are on TikTok, but we're all on X, and so that's, I don't know. It's and then how do we stop it? And that's what I under his post is, how do we stop it? And so that's pretty interesting. David and I, we're gonna try to get over there to Dubai in between our Paris stuff. I'm trying to figure that out over the next right before Paris Blockchain Week.
Yeah. I was just looking through, I haven't actually found it at the moment, I was just looking through, there've been other periods in history where they've focused on infrastructure to try to stimulate the economy. And honestly, that's the game that's happening right now. They're just spending on whatever to try to stimulate the economy, to keep the economy afloat. And it isn't sustainable to just create all this money, especially with these high interest rates, high inflation. They're actually keeping inflation high with all this spending that they're doing, the infrastructure spending. It's actually keeping inflation higher, which is why we got the figures out the other day, higher than expected. And it is storing up problems for the future, unfortunately.
Well, and as much as we don't think that they're going to raise rates, historically, we've had much higher rates before. So it's not like it's out of the realm of possibility that they wouldn't raise rates.
Yeah, I mean, there've been way higher rates back in the 70s in particular. I know it's a long time ago now. But actually, the trajectory, if you look at what's happening in the economy right now, there are some serious parallels between what happened back then. They did have an inflation scare, and then it dropped back a bit, and that's exactly what we've had just recently. Don't forget, inflation picked up a lot last year, and then it's fallen back a bit, but it's still at higher levels than their need, than their target rate. And then they said, what happened in the 70s? It went higher, came back a bit, and then it absolutely rocketed, took off. And that's potentially following the same trajectory here. So we are living in dangerous times. And that's why people are investing into Bitcoin at the moment, and gold. And more money will go into Bitcoin and gold, because they're the two things that have limited supply. Virtually everything else, you can make more of it whenever you want.
Yes. So true. So true. Well, it's going to be very interesting. We're going to be reporting on it from here as well. I think Blockchain Life is coming up in Dubai. So we have an official partnership there as well. So let's make sure we put some things together from there. We'll broadcast live with Matt Dixon. Blockchain.
Well, it's been a pleasure to be with you. I've got to run to another meeting now, but thank you for having me and look forward to seeing you guys tomorrow.
Talk soon.
Thank you. Bye for now.
The great Matt Dixon. It really is a pleasure to have him on the show. So this is, guys, we are in a situation in this country that I don't know how we get out of. I think one of the most important things that we can do right now is to know each other, to have ways to communicate with each other more than just one way. To have phone numbers, emails, things like that, so that we actually know each other, because the future of what's going to happen is I fear like it's going to be like the markets, just like this TikTok ban. That TikTok ban is going to get rubber stamped by the Senate. The chances of that thing being stopped in the Senate are like 0.
Yeah.
So Congress passed it. And then if you think that anything that they did, and then the other thing, even like the Tate brothers, David, I think actually, and things are coordinated worldwide. I think that actually the Tate brothers being let out of jail yesterday was coordinated because of the TikTok ban. And so they wanted to give everybody a big win. What did we talk about yesterday? We didn't talk about them voting on the TikTok ban. We talked about the Tate brothers.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty good point. And who knows how out of custody they are. I mean, they're probably just
that's my point.
Out on bail.
Yeah, what are they on? House arrest?
Yeah, they have a court date now and a whole new book of worms to deal with.
Yeah, and looking at what they're going to of course if they're going to get extradited and everything else. So I think it was coordinated. It looks to me like it was coordinated. Look at this, guys. Here you go. You have a little bit. Oh yeah, we're winning. God bless Romania. This and that and the other. And then meanwhile, slam down the iron fist here in the U.S. It is a big issue, and we need to work together. We need to know each other. We need to support each other. We need to support freedom-loving people. We need to work inside of the monetary revolution. I know I keep promising I'm going to do the symbolism on the dollar. The U.S. dollar is the instrument, the debt instrument that has been used to enslave us all. Joe Biden could not send $300 million more to the Ukraine if the central bank didn't mint it for him.
Right.
Yeah. If he had to come and get the money from you, you would say no. $130 million to Haiti also sounds crazy to me. I mean, I know we need to help them out or whatever. I think we sent over some troops. I mean, but $130 million. I mean, at a time like this, when inflation is through the roof. Anyhow, it is absolutely crazy. But we need to know each other. We need to work together. I think getting Trump in is an important step. Hopefully that we're able to do that. I kind of think they're just going to switch Biden out at the last minute. I think they're going to just push the horse until the last minute and then switch him out and be like, vote for this guy. But who knows? Anyway, David, we've done another great hour here. Check out our friend Shib Whiff Hat, our favorite meme coin there, Shib Whiff Hat. Nice little thing they have going on. You can get that on Raydium, Raydium, doing exciting things. Hoping that, David, you have a great few hours. We're going to be back on with the Porter Brothers show in 5 hours on your TV there in Texas and Louisiana.
That's right. Stay tuned to stay lucrative.
Your voice is powerful. When combined with social engagement, it's a force for change. Decentralized media paired with free speech is the catalyst for an empowered world and a unified, invaluable ecosystem. Join Global Boost, become a champion of free speech, and help to reshape the future of media.